I believe, is the correct approach if you believe that in order to have a truly successful long-term corporation, you need to address the interests of your employees, the interests of your customers, the interests of your stockholders, and the broader public interest.
CEO Voices, Leading with Communication, examines the communication that enables transformational leadership. In this episode, we speak with Hank Barnette, former CEO of Bethlehem Steel, who talks about the power of purpose and mission in driving a socially responsible enterprise through a period of unprecedented disruption.
Mr. Barnette, thank you for joining us today. Our podcast, CEO Voices, is focused on the communication aspect of leadership. You've had nothing short, sir, of a legendary career, working in law as corporate counsel, CEO, as an advisor in the Reagan administration, serving in higher education, community service, and so many other endeavors. Can you briefly walk us through your career and the role your own leadership communication played along the way?
Our communication played a fundamental and critical role. Bethlehem Steel was thinking about expanding and organizing its law department into a corporate legal function. That's routine today, but it was certainly not then. And only the very large corporations had moved in that direction. And I was asked to come to Bethlehem and be a part of that. And it was a good opportunity, and my family and Joanne was very encouraging. So we really came to Bethlehem for 3 years to 5 years, and then we would return to New Haven. That was the plan. We came here and thoroughly enjoyed and respected the company, the business it was in, and the legal challenges facing the company internationally. And 1 year grew to the next, and we sort of took a family vote and decided that everyone was very happy right where we were, and we stayed here. And then one thing led to another. I became general counsel and then a director of Bethlehem. And in 1992, was selected chairman and chief executive officer. So that started having had a teaching career a little bit, military, legal, and then joining with the management side, sort of the business side of my career. Thoroughly enjoyed, challenged, as you all especially know, challenged by the challenges facing the industry, but became chair of the International Iron and Steel Institute, the organization of all international steel corporations and businesses, as well as the North American Iron and Steel Institute, different organization. Thoroughly enjoyed the colleagues, and the challenges in the industry. And very early, I was still general counsel and during the Reagan administration, but was asked to serve as a member of the Administrative Conference of the United States, and was appointed to and did that under President Bush, and had by then just about become CEO.
Mr. Barnette, I'm thinking now, here we are, 2023.
Right.
And it's still quite rare, sir, for general counsels, chief legal officers in Fortune 500 companies to ascend to the CEO, chairman and CEO role, let alone 1992. How do you explain your ascension to the top? I mean, because it's not a traditional route.
Well, look carefully at resumes, and I believe you're going to see more JDs in some of those corporate resumes than perhaps they want to acknowledge. But I can explain it in part for these reasons. Number one, you see, the general counsel is like perhaps only one other person is a director of internal audit in a company. Those two people have access across the company. And those two are also known, especially the general counsel, to the senior officers and to the board members. So that person certainly gets a lot of review, if you will, on a regular basis. The second thing, if a company is facing major legal issues, pick the pharmacy industry, and I'm going to talk about Ken Fraser of Merck, but if you're facing major legal issues, no one will be more focal, observed than your general counsel handling those issues. Right. In my case, it was trade, the environment, healthcare, and pensions, four major public policy and litigation issues. So it's how you handle those kinds of things. And if you look in the railroad industry, if you look at the banking industry, and any heavy regulated industry where there are government agencies and litigation, you'll find some general counsel who have emerged. Most did not seek or start out as general counsel hoping someday to be chairman. That certainly is not true in my case.
Right. You mentioned pharma in that last example. Yes. And I actually heard a podcast last week, Mr. Barnette, with the head of legal, the general counsel for Haleon, which is the pharmaceutical spinoff of GlaxoSmithKline. They had an IPO last year, and he was talking about a range of issues legal issues dealing with that procedure. But he said, I found really interesting, that the backbone of the legal profession and what makes for truly effective lawyers is the ability to tell compelling stories. So my follow-up question to you is sort of twofold. What is it about the legal profession that creates such great storytellers, and how did that storytelling muscle help you as CEO of Bethlehem Steel?
The storytelling part for a lawyer, you see, begins, I think, with law school, because most law schools today still teach by the case method. And the case method is learning a story about something that happened and is being analyzed and reported upon. So the very study of law in that respect is storytelling. It's a story about a case.
Right.
I think the second is that good lawyers, successful lawyers, are really just excellent communicators. And that's not just talking. That's your ability to think, your ability to verbalize those thoughts, and then in today's world to present yourself, your appearance. It's all of that. So the lawyer, again, I believe, if you divide the lawyer world into two types, corporate lawyers and litigators, but it doesn't matter. They're very effective communicators, and they can determine what the issue is very quickly, but very narrowly, determine what the issue is and what the alternatives are to solve it. And then if asked, give their recommendation. That's the story.
Storytelling certainly underscored your tenure at Bethlehem Steel. Your industry, especially during those times, were undergoing the most dramatic transformation and disruption ever experienced by any industry. How did you tell the story when you were looking at closing that historic Bethlehem Steel plant in town to your stakeholders? And how did you prioritize who are the ones you wanted to tell the story to first?
Well, it's an excellent question, but it's a complex question. The first is to remember who you are trying to communicate with. And something as fundamental as the whole core strategy of your company and your industry, you're certainly communicating with your employees and your customers, with your stockholders and the public in the broadest sense of that term. So that's your audience. And determining, again, what the issues are that you're trying to address, and having a very clear, understandable message about that, preferably with alternatives, but also with consequences, has to be your objective. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you can reconcile your communication, your disclosure duties from a legal standpoint, and they become the same. And you essentially are publicly, regularly advising on the issues facing, if you wish to go to the Bethlehem plant, the issues facing the Bethlehem plant, and you communicate with your stockholders and your customers and your employees and your public audiences uniformly.
I most certainly would, because you've been so generous and gracious over the years with your time, and we wrote the Bethlehem Steel case together on closing the site in Bethlehem. And our students consistently, as you know, because you have zoomed into our classes for us, cite that as one of the gold standards for corporate citizenship. And we would love to have you walk us through the factors that led up to
Sure.
that closing and the decisions that you had to make, because I know it was a very tough decision for you because you live in Bethlehem and your family's in Bethlehem.
Our research headquarters were located here, and it was the heart of our information technology division. So independent of the Bethlehem plant, we had an international headquarters, our research, magnificent research facilities, best we think in the industry, information technology, and such a long, long history. But nevertheless, as we approached the 1990s, we're talking some years ago now, but the principles I don't think have changed. Bethlehem plant did not stand alone. It had by then become a division, a standalone division of the corporation. We could talk about the importance of that perhaps later, but so the Bethlehem division, or the Bethlehem plant, we were able to identify its issues, its revenue, its expenses, needs for capital expenditures, and so forth. And the mandatory requirement that as a division, as a plant, that it be a contributing factor to our overall enterprise, because it's unfair to the rest of the corporation if it is not. It was then identified as one of 5 underperforming divisions. And there are 3 alternatives for an underperforming division. You can fix it, you can sell it, or in the last instance, it's necessary to close it. So we set about, and this is all being publicly communicated, to the general public as well as in our filings. Very difficult alternatives for public to accept, elected officials, but the facts are the facts. So we tried, varying amounts were discussed, but it's certainly $100 million trying to, quote, fix the structural steel business. That was not possible, but there were good faith efforts and widely communicated. The second was to sell, and we were unsuccessful in that, finding a qualified buyer, which brought us to the third alternative, was close. And that decision was made. Your employees and your public were always of primary concern to our employees. We gave them the alternative of moving to another Bethlehem Steel operation, of being educated in a different trade or a different opportunity, having their benefits well documented, having counseling if necessary, those opportunities for employees. But with that, we proceeded to the closing of the facility. Against the background, you needed a law, local, state, and federal. The laws had to permit you to do it. And we were very open about this in Pennsylvania, but we needed to change our laws here to have a brownfield site that could be developed. And we were successful in doing that. And the second thing, you needed a plan. And we identified enterprise development that had done the harbor, the Baltimore harbor most recently. They were just exceptional with the plan for the 1,800 acres. So we had a plan, all communicated to the public. And today, I hope all of those hearing, listening will have a chance to come to Bethlehem and see the just ongoing but remarkable progress, jobs created, and new businesses flourishing on the site.
Mr. Barnette, listening to what you were describing around the decision process that went into such a monumental move, there's a lot of talk today about environmental, social, and governance issues, or ESG, and you touched on all of them back, all those many years ago. All the environmental implications of converting brownfield into a usable public space, the social implications of the closure would have on not only the employees, but the broader community at large. And then you talked about all, the governance issues and legal issues that went into such a series of complicated, actions that were necessary. So and Jude and I have talked about this, and our students have responded in class about this too, saying that, Mr. Barnette was ESG, he was sustainability before sustainability became sort of the buzzword of the day. So that said, a lot of current CEOs are wrestling with these issues of ESG. Based on your experience, as like we said, we would consider you an early pioneer in this effort. Based on your experiences, what advice would you give CEOs today who are wrestling with these big questions around sustainability, ESG, if you will?
We all need to focus on what the mission of the corporation really is.
Sure.
And if you believe that the only purpose of the corporation is profitability, is to increase the value of the share, and those are the actions you're going to take, they tend to drive you down a very different road in the way you manage and your business and conduct yourself. On the other hand, if you, as I believe is the correct approach, if you believe that in order to have a truly successful long-term corporation, you need to address the interests of your employees, the interests of your customers, the interests of your stockholders, and the broader public interest. Now, that was heresy in the 80s and 90s, and particularly for a lawyer. Because Delaware law still tries to say that first the corporation's improved. And then you jump to how you improve it. Well, what you do is you cut costs. You do this and you do that. It takes you down a very different road, Steve. And the way, my heavens, the only way you can have effective employees is for them to have a safe working place. Safe in terms of the work rules and the conduct of their fellow employees and the equipment they're using. You need a zero accident rate in your facility. And we all want to work in a clean environment.
Sure.
So you need a zero environmental exceedance standard, zero. And that's achievable. So it perhaps it's just a very different approach to what that basic corporate purpose really is and how you communicate.
All of this wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the relationships that you had built. For example, bringing a casino to the site
Right.
in a founded by the Moravians, a religious sect. Can you tell us a little bit about your theory of the power of relationships and how you handled this complex endeavor and managed to still be able to live in the city?
Right. You do it, June, by, I guess, this is somewhat personal and forgive me, but when you're a corporate citizen in a community, establishing friendships and mutually supportive relationships with leaders in your community should be just a part, I believe, of your basic responsibilities. Because you're living there as an individual, sure, but you're really living there as the representative, not just you, but your fellow officers and employees. If that's true, then you have a history, a long history of being a part of the community. And as a result, and with the leaders of the community, it's not a political issue, not a Democrat-Republican issue, but it's a good citizen issue. If that's true, then when the corporation experiences good times, you celebrate that together. But if you're facing difficult times, the fact that you have a record of being a good citizen, being a good person, is just fundamental to understanding the truthfulness of the issues that you're going through and, while not agreeing with them, but at least understanding them and giving you a chance to work your way through them. Bethlehem Steel, throughout my knowledge of the history of Bethlehem, had that sort of reputation. It's a reason in the beginning, we joined Bethlehem Steel. It was the culture of Bethlehem Steel, the way in which its representatives were regarded by others. And that was just so important. Accepting the very adverse consequences, the very negative plans that we said were necessary. Now, as to the casino, having a community founded by the Moravian Church to have as one of its principal investors after closing the core industry as a gambling business was very, very difficult for the Sands to communicate, but they did it very effectively. And if you have studied the Sands, and I recommend it, but their strategy was to, yes, we're in the gaming business, but we also are in the destination business. And when we build our projects, sure, we want people to enjoy the gaming facilities, but we want them to have other things to do. A family may come to our hotel, and the mother or the dad will game, but others may want to go and visit the museums or the restaurants. And they found Bethlehem an attractive place to be a destination. I think that helped. And ultimately, many in the community just took a neutral position. Once the decisions were made, decisions were being implicated, instead of just being negative, 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 accept what's happened and give it a chance. And ultimately, that sort of attitude was what got it through the acceptance stages. And today, it's not an issue. The owner now is Wind Creek, an Indian company based basically on an Indian Native American heritage. Very, very good members of the community and operating very, very effectively and in a law compliant manner.
No, I appreciate that. And I want to, it segues nicely, I think, into this next question I wanted to ask you, which is around communication and leadership. When you've groomed a lot of leaders during your career, you've mentored a lot of leaders, you still do it, sitting on boards and through your work in academia and elsewhere. What do you look for in terms of future leaders and their communication style and how that plays into their management effectiveness, if you will?
Well, this may sound so basic, Steve, but it's a cheer for the humanities in education. But I believe a good communicator must be able to think clearly, to write clearly, to speak clearly, and to have an appearance. I'm talking about personal, physical appearance of causing the listener to understand and believe that the person speaking understands the words and articulates clearly and effectively. That's the personal side of it. But the individual, in terms of the thought process, really has to have the leadership qualities, the leadership ability to identify the problem and determine the team that can address the problem, give them the responsibilities, and monitor them, cheer their success, and critique the shortcomings. That gets the communicator up to the point of communication. But boy, absent the ability to speak, to write, to articulate, and to physically appear as if you represent the issue you're talking about, or the corporation you represent, or the class you're trying to teach, whatever it is.
Yeah, you mentioned something that virtually every CEO that June and I have interviewed over the last 3 seasons for this program have touched on, and that is the power of presence. We had an incredible conversation with General Teedy, head of the U.S. JAG Corps, a few weeks ago, and he went on and on about that. And I think it's something that a lot of our MBAs, quite frankly, wrestle with. So my last question to you before I turn it back over to June is this. As you think about our current stock of MBAs and what they're up against, they're working oftentimes in a hybrid or sometimes in a fully remote environment, and they're trying to build their own presence, their own leadership style. any couple words of wisdom? I know we ask you in the class and you always leave them with inspiring words. So I thought we would do that here because June and I do require all of our MBAs to listen to these podcasts. I know we're going out to a broader community than just MBAs, but I think this is a question that is relevant for everyone, whether you're an MBA or not. What would be two or a couple pearls of wisdom in terms of building your own presence, your own leadership qualities as you continue on with your career?
Some of these will be so basic, Steve. If you chuckle at me, I would understand. And some may even be controversial with present day students. So this is just a very personal response to your question. How do you differentiate yourself? You are not only always on time, you're always ahead of time. 5 minutes. Steve is always there. You can count on that. You have to build that reputation. And for people to be timely is something that is noticed, and it's lifelong, and it's career. I think the second, you really have to look like you know and understand what you're doing. And that means how you dress to different people in different times. I don't have any dress code. I'm not suggesting that. But there is a way that should be considered. I think the third is have a reputation of helping your colleagues. I'm just in over my head. What do I do? I call June. You're that kind of person. And perhaps controversial in some ways, but I don't think so. Your leadership knows that you're always available. Things come up and they have to be done, and it's Friday. And you're the type person that you're willing to take on tough assignments. Don't necessarily volunteer for them. I'm not suggesting that, although that's helpful. Those are some basic qualities. Beyond that, you learn certain things, Steve, over the years, and they're really pretty simple. Much of this is, it's right here, but it's doing what really your heart, your gut tells you. You do the right thing.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes all the studies say go north, but boy, your gut tells you to go south. You just feel like you ought to go south. You probably should go south. But I think it's that. I think the other, and I think often about this, it's so easy to say this, Steve, but you do try to do the right thing. And that also, and maybe this is more lawyer talk than CEO talk, but boy, it helps in the boardroom. You may have realized that we should have taken this action a year ago, and we're still, it is never too late. It's never too late to do the right thing. So let's do it. Let's get it done. Those have been things that I have thought, and I look for in leaders.
As we come to a close, I've so much enjoyed at the early start of this podcast the story about your journey through your career. And it will play well with our students because as they're looking forward to their careers now,
Sure.
What I heard from you is that, sometimes you take the path that you may not have thought you were going to take. You said you started off maybe thinking about teaching, and you end up being a CEO of a major corporation through law and through business. it's something that the students need to understand, that that's how life happens. And you still live in Bethlehem. You still are a trusted advisor in the community, very much looked up to. Your reputation is stellar. And Hank, I have to ask you, you're still so active. Can you tell us, as we bring this to a close, I don't think you're ever going to retire. I mean, how do you stay refreshed? How do you stay revitalized? How do you handle all of this? It makes me tired thinking about it.
Well, thank you, June. That's and having a chance to visit with you and Steve and think about questions like that has been a very great pleasure. The most effective way I can answer that is, and this is very personal, so forgive me, but you do have to wish to try to lead a purposeful life. And that means, in the first instance, trying to maintain your health. If you're not healthy, whatever you aspire to do, it's going to be very difficult if you have unresolved health issues. So trying to keep yourself fit and healthy is the best possible thing you can do, for not only for yourself, but for your family and others that you're working with or trying to serve. So that's my first suggestion. The second, we all have families, and at least my belief is putting families and friends first, trying to do and help and support your families and their interests. And if you can maintain your health and have the kind of family associations and relationships that are meaningful, other matters, it seems to me, fall into place. Every person is different, but if your financial objectives are manageable, you're talking about just establishing really a cash position that will meet your challenges and opportunities in life. And the more modest, the better. And if you basically live an active but modest life, it certainly makes it easier, I believe, for a longer life. But those things all together, June, just in whatever way you do it, it's to be active and to be purposeful in your activities.
Thank you. Active and purposeful. Those are good words of wisdom from you today. Thank you so much, Mr. Barnette. We've enjoyed talking with you, and we look forward to seeing you soon in the Darden classroom.
I appreciate it, Steve. Thank you. And thank you, Jim.
CEO Voices examines the communication that enables transformational leadership. June West is Associate Professor of Business Administration and co-founder of the Darden Leadership Communication Council, along with her colleague, Steve Soltis. Soltis is the former head of executive communication at the Coca-Cola Company and lectures at Darden. This podcast is a production of the University of Virginia Darden School of Business.